So, a while back, I moved into this small apartment complex. Nothing fancy, just a low-rise building with maybe a dozen units and a small parking lot out front. I was about 25 years old at the time, living cheap and quiet, wanting to gather some extra money to have in case of an emergency. The place seemed decent, nothing weird, no loud neighbors. Everything was very organized, clean, and it honestly felt like I'd lucked out. The first few weeks were fine. I didn't talk to many people, but everyone kept to themselves. Then, one night I got home late, probably around 2 a.m., and every single parking space was taken, except one, the one by the dumpster. I hadn't really thought about it before, but I remembered that spot always seemed to be the last one left. I figured maybe it was awkward to pull out of, or people didn't like the smell or whatever, so I parked there, not giving it any more thoughts. Next morning, I found a note under my wiper. It said not to park there, that the specific parking space belonged to someone. No name, no apartment number, just something scrawled in all caps like it was written in anger. I kind of brushed it off. The parking lot didn't have any assigned spots, no painted numbers, nothing in the lease. So I figured whoever left it was just overly territorial, but me as stubborn person didn't care at all. A few days later, same deal, no spots left, and that one was open again, so I took it. That was mistake number 2. Next morning, another note. This one said I'd been warned. Yeah, that's when it started getting weird. I asked around, and an older guy who lived upstairs told me, kind of laughing, that the guy in 3B acted like that spot was his private property. He said the guy had been living there for years and kind of acted like he owned the place. Crazy, right? Honestly, I didn't think it was a big deal. I wasn't trying to start anything, but I also didn't feel like I was doing anything wrong. So when that space was the only one left, I kept parking there. Then, my car got scratched, like the whole driver's side, one long, deep line. And about a week after that, I found both rear tires completely deflated, not popped, just drained. I also noticed that anytime I pulled into the lot, I could see someone watching from one of the upper balconies, just standing there, not moving, just watching, always from the same apartment, 3B. I swear to you, I was starting to get pissed by that guy. That's when I stopped using that spot. I didn't want my car to be destroyed, but it didn't matter. He started bothering me anyway. Every time I went outside, even just to rinse off my car or sweep the porch, he'd find a reason to come out too. He'd say I was selfish, or that I thought I was above everyone else. He'd go on about people not respecting the system. I told him I hadn't parked in that space for weeks. I told him I wasn't breaking any rules, but he wouldn't hear it. It was like he had already decided I was the enemy. Then it escalated. I started seeing him around the complex, not just by the lot, but by the mailboxes, behind the building near the trash bins, even once right by the laundry room while I was switching out clothes. Just everywhere. He wouldn't say anything those times. He'd just stand there like he was making a point. It honestly started messing with my head. I began taking different routes just to avoid passing by his apartment. Only I knew how in the world I haven't already cursed this dude. But the worst part came late one night. I was on the couch, headphones on, watching something on my laptop when I heard pounding, not knocking, pounding on the front door. I took off my headphones and froze for a second. Then I checked the peephole, and yep, it was him. He was red-faced, sweaty, and furious. I didn't open the door. I just stood there, not moving, not breathing. Then he started yelling, full volume, screaming at me to open up, calling me names, swearing non-stop, telling me I was a coward, that I couldn't hide, that he knew what kind of person I was. He just wouldn't stop. I was scared he'd try to break in. So, I called 911. My hands were literally shaking now. I was thinking about how far he could take this. While I was still on the phone with the dispatcher, I heard him kick the door once, hard, then nothing. The silence was honestly worse than the yelling. A few minutes later, I saw blue lights through the peephole. The cops arrived and took my statement. I showed them the notes, the photos of the car damage, even a short video clip of him shouting at me a few days earlier. They went up to talk to him and ended up taking him into custody. Apparently, this wasn't the first time he'd done something like this. The building manager later told me he'd been warned before and had a history of aggressive behavior at a previous complex. I stayed for another 6 months or so, and after that night, I never saw him again. Have you ever dealt with a neighbor that just wouldn't let things go? If you've had an experience like that, drop it in the comments. I really want to hear your story. I just moved into this neighborhood. A quiet street lined with single-family homes, most of them with small yards and white fences. I'd found the house online and instantly fell in love with how peaceful it looked. It was my first real place on my own, and I was honestly looking forward to a fresh start. No roommates, no apartment walls, just my own space for once. The first couple of weeks were exactly what I hoped for: quiet, simple. I was still getting things unpacked and figuring out little routines. Yard work on Sundays, early coffee on the porch, evening walks. I didn't know many of the neighbors, but they seemed nice enough. People waved when they passed by, and I liked that. Except for one house. Directly across the street from mine, there was a man who lived there, and I never caught his name, but he looked like he was in his late 40s or early 50s. Never smiled, never waved, just stood on his porch a lot, leaning on the railing with his arms crossed, watching. I noticed him the very first night, not because of him, but because of a little blinking red light. I was turning off the lights in my house before bed and saw it blinking through the blinds in my bedroom. I opened them slightly, and that's when I saw it. A small camera mounted in the upstairs window, directly across the street, his window. It was aimed straight at my house, specifically at my bedroom. At first, I second-guessed myself. Maybe it was angled weird. Maybe it wasn't what I thought. I tried to convince myself that I was overthinking it. It's not like it was illegal to have a security camera, but something about it didn't sit right. The angle, the placement, it just fell off. I started keeping the blinds closed all the time. After that, things started to feel different. Every time I went outside, to mow the lawn, pull weeds, even just grab something from the car, I'd look up, and he'd be there. Not always on the porch, sometimes just behind his front window, standing, watching. At first, I told myself it was just me being paranoid, that maybe I just noticed him more because I was already feeling creeped out, but it started to feel more specific, like he was timing it, like he was waiting. One time, I decided to sit on the porch with my coffee around 7 a.m., something I'd been doing since I moved in. Within a minute, literally a minute, his front door opened, and he stepped out. No cup, no phone, just walked out and stood there. Didn't do anything, didn't even pretend to be busy, just stood and stared. That's when I started feeling anxious in my own yard. I started wearing sunglasses just so I could look at him without him knowing. And yeah, every time I stepped out, he was either already there or showed up seconds later. It wasn't a coincidence anymore. He was watching me and not even trying to hide it. But nothing could have prepared me for what I saw next. It was a Saturday afternoon. I was inside folding laundry, and I passed by my front window. Something caught my eye, a small flicker of movement from across the street. I looked up. His second-story window was wide open, and there he was sitting behind it, partially obscured by the curtain. He was holding a pair of binoculars. I instantly stopped whatever I was doing. I just stood there, not even blinking, for a good 5 seconds. He was scanning slowly, like he was used to doing this, like it wasn't even strange to him, like it was just part of his day. He didn't flinch when I saw him, didn't try to hide, he just kept watching. After a good 5 to 10 seconds, I backed away from the window. That wasn't weird neighbor behavior anymore. That was someone deliberately watching me inside my home. I didn't care if he was technically on his own property or that he wasn't stepping foot near mine. That crossed a line. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every sound made me jump. Every shadow felt like something I hadn't noticed before. I even moved to sleep in the living room, far from any window. The whole sense of safety I had when I moved in, it was just gone. I filed a police report the next day. I explained everything. The camera blinking into my bedroom, how he constantly appeared when I stepped outside, and now the binoculars. I gave the officer the dates, the patterns, even showed him photos I'd taken of the camera in his window. They told me they'd look into it, that it was good I documented it all, but I could tell. They were being careful about what they could actually do. It's not illegal to look out your window, that's what they said, but they understood how unsettling it was, and they told me to call again immediately if anything escalated. The worst part, even after filing the report, the behavior didn't stop. The camera stayed there, and I kept my blind shut. He didn't come out as often, but I knew he was still watching. I installed my own cameras, not to spy on him, just to cover myself. I started keeping notes of everything, dates, times, what he was wearing. I even bought blackout curtains. And, yeah, I've started looking for a new place. It sucks, because I really like this house. It was supposed to be my peaceful little space, but there's nothing peaceful about knowing someone across the street is tracking your every move like it's a hobby. Maybe one day he'll get bored, but I'm not waiting around to find out. When my girlfriend and I moved into our new place, we were honestly just excited to finally have a space that felt like ours. It wasn't anything fancy, just a modest one-story house in a quiet neighborhood, but it checked all the boxes. Decent yard, solid location, close enough to work for both of us. It felt like a fresh start. The first few weeks were pretty normal. We spent our time unpacking, figuring out where to put stuff, doing little upgrades around the house. The neighbors seemed decent quiet, mostly older folks. No one weird, no issues. For a while, it felt like we'd actually lucked out. Then we met Mrs. Brown. She lived in the house directly to the right of ours, probably in her 70s, maybe early 80s, but super energetic for her age. She showed up the second or third day after we moved in, literally walked over while we were setting up our patio chairs and introduced herself with this big smile and a tray of lemon bars. At first, it was just friendly. She told us she'd lived on the street for over 40 years and liked to welcome new neighbors. We thanked her, made small talk, and thought that was the end of it. But over the next few days, we started seeing her a lot. Like every single time we stepped outside. My girlfriend would go out to get the mail, and boom, there's Mrs. Brown, waving from her porch, shouting out questions about how we were settling in, or whether we needed help with anything. I didn't think much of it at first, just a friendly older woman, maybe a bit bored, but it started feeling constant. She'd show up with random things, a loaf of banana bread, a bag of tomatoes from her garden, a flyer for a church event, always uninvited, always a little too eager. I told myself she was just being nice, but my girlfriend started getting weirded out. She joked that it felt like Mrs. Brown knew our schedule better than we did. Then it got stranger. One night, it was almost 10 p.m. My girlfriend and I had just sat down to watch something, and there was a knock at the door. It was her again, Mrs. Brown holding a plate of cookies. Nothing wrong with cookies, I guess, but who shows up that late without a heads up? I opened the door, probably looking more confused than anything, and she just smiled and said something like, "Thought you could use a little treat before bed." I took the cookies, said thanks, and shut the door. My girlfriend looked at me and just said, "That's not normal, right?" And yeah, it wasn't. We agreed it was harmless, but definitely off. After that, she started showing up at even weirder times. Early in the morning, while we were leaving for work, midday when no one else was around, one time she knocked just to let us know she saw a raccoon in our trash bin. At a certain point, we started avoiding going outside. We'd peek through the blinds before doing anything, and every time, without fail, she was there, just watching. Then came the turning point. We came home one day and saw her standing in our backyard. No knock, no call, just standing there like it was her place. My girlfriend froze. I walked out and asked her what she was doing. She said she was checking on the plants. I told her, as politely as I could, that it wasn't okay to just come onto our property. She didn't argue, just smiled and said, "Of course, dear, I'm only trying to help." That night, we sat down and had a real talk about it. We agreed to be direct. Next time she came over, I told her nicely that we appreciated everything, but we needed some space. She nodded, smiled, and said she understood, but she didn't stop. A few days later, my girlfriend was cleaning the hallway shelf and knocked over a stack of books. Behind them, wedged in the back, was a small black device. I had to take a second look. It was a camera, one of those cheap pinhole types. We freaked out, searched the whole house, found two more, one in the kitchen, another near the front door. There was no doubt in our minds who put them there. Mrs. Brown was the only one who had been inside our house more than once, and even then, only when she brought over something and we let her in briefly, but that was enough. I marched over to her house with the cameras in hand. I wasn't yelling, but I was pissed. I asked her straight up if she had put them in our house. She didn't deny it. She just said, "I wanted to make sure you were safe, that's all." Like that somehow made it okay? We called the police, filed a report, but since we didn't have footage of her actually planting the cameras, there wasn't much they could do. They talked to her, gave her a warning, and left it at that. After that, she stopped coming around. No more treats, no more advice, no more knocking, but she was still there. We'd see her through the window, peeking through her blinds, watching, always watching. It got to the point where my girlfriend couldn't sleep. She said she kept feeling like someone was in the house. One night, she woke up screaming, said she saw someone in the hallway, just standing there. I got up, checked everything. Nothing. Doors were locked. Nothing was out of place. That was it. We couldn't do it anymore. We packed a few bags the next morning and went to stay with her sister across town. Eventually, we put the house up for sale. Took a loss on it, but we didn't care. We just wanted out. It's been about a year since we left. We haven't heard anything about Mrs. Brown, and we don't want to. We don't even drive through that area anymore. Whatever her deal was, whether it was loneliness, obsession, or something worse, I don't want to understand it. All I know is, when someone watches you that closely, it's not because they care, it's because they want control. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit that like button, and don't forget to subscribe for more amazing content. Thanks for watching.